to Softcover, ThePrint's online venue where we launch non-fiction books. Today, I have with myself a Harper Collins publication, a very interesting book called The War Diary of Asha-San, From Tokyo to Netaji's Indian National Army. It's a very interesting book. It tells a very unique story of one of India's female freedom fighters who served in the Rani Jhansi Regiment of the Indian National Army in the 1940s. But interestingly, her story doesn't start in India, but rather Kobe, Japan, where she was born and grew up. Her father, Anand Mohan Sai, was secretary to Dr. Rajendra Prasad before going to Japan. And later, he got very closely involved with Subhash Chandra Bose and the formation of the INA. Her mother, Sati Sen Sahai, was the niece of Congress leader Chittaranjan Das of West Bengal. So today we are joined by Lieutenant Bharati Asha Choudhry, as well as her son Sanjay and Tanvi Srivastava, who is the writer and translator of this book. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So before we start answering questions, I would also like to tell you what I love about this book as well. This book sheds light on the role of female soldiers in India's freedom struggle, which I think was very interesting. It also contextualizes the Indian freedom struggle in the World War II time, and as well as the other social movements that were happening in Asia at the time. And the third thing I like is this book, while it also tells a personal experience of a 17-year-old girl, it also touches on the nuances of history where the INA fought alongside the Japanese army against the British. So I guess my first question is to Tanvi and Sanjay. So could you walk us through the process of collating the diary scraps, which were originally written in Japanese, and how did you come up and form this book?
What I'll do is I will just go to the background of how this book came about, and then Tanvi can tell us how she went about it, because it was quite a torturous process for her also.
Torturous? Why, Tanvi?
Yeah, because to follow the line of thought of a person who she just got to know, that is my mother, and she had to understand a book that was originally written in Japanese, or not the book,
the diary.
The thinking was Japanese. Even the Hindi, the idiom and all, and the style of writing is Japanese, because my mother's mother tongue is Japanese.
Right.
Most comfortable in Japanese. Even today, she can write faster in Japanese than in English. She can calculate when she does a table, she does it in Japanese, even now. So to interpret that and express it in English must have been a torturous process for her. So I quite congratulate her for that. Let me tell you, it started off when my mother, we had gone to hostel, and she was completing her BA much after marriage. And at that time, she started learning Hindi afresh, and proper Hindi. Before that, it was Hindi, Bengali, English, all mixed together. She learned proper, and she did her graduation. And that is the time when people said that, look, you must put all these scrapbooks, whatever little she had left.
Of her writings, right?
So some of it was left behind in Japan, because she left and it was back in Japan. Her mother brought it back with her, brought some of it back with her. There were scraps were there written during her days in the Rani Jhansi Regiment. So that she had. So put together, the Dharam Yug was a Times of India publication many years ago, closed down. And the editor, Dharamveer Bharati, he impressed on her that you should write this. So she put down her thing in and came out in Dharamyug as a 13 series, 13 episodes, 13 chapters, you can say, in 13 issues.
Mm-hmm.
Then it remained like that for many years. It was only in 87 that, again, there was people, her father, and we all got together. And of course, I was away, I was mostly there, and she managed to put it together. And it was published as a book by a publishing house here in Patna. The Shankar Dayal Singh was the publisher, and that is his publication. So that, and since then it has been like that. And from there, now I'll ask Tanvi to take on the story of the publication of the book.
Sure. So I would also like to add that I am married to Asha's grandson. So it is a complete family affair as well. And I didn't go into the book with the thought of translating it. So I also happen to run African safari holidays, and we were very badly hit by COVID. So I was looking, okay, I need to do something else. And I also write fiction. So around about the same time, when I joined this writing mentorship program, I came across an article by Jhumpa Lahiri where she said that even if you're not a translator per se, but you're interested in the art of writing and you want to improve your craft, you should try your hand at translation. And it had never struck me, like, till that moment, that it's something that I could even possibly do. So I went looking through my bookshelf. I found some other options. Nothing really appealed. I found Dadi's diary in Hindi. It was called Asha-San Ki Subhash diary. And obviously I knew Dadi. I'd known her for the past 10 years or so. I knew of her stories, but I didn't know in such detail. And then when I started translating it, I found not just the stories really gripping, but the voice I found incredibly gripping.
Sorry, Tanvi, just to interrupt you. Were you translating from Japanese? Or from
This
Hindi?
was from Hindi. This is from Hindi to English. So Dadi did the translation herself in 1973 from Japanese to Hindi. And then I did the translation from Hindi into English. Okay. So for me, it was an incredible process, because I think when you translate, you engage with a story at a much deeper level. So you're also working at the level of the plot, or in this case, just the memories. But when you find the voice of the character, and for me, just to have that personal connection and to know Dadi, it truly brought the story to life. And I could see that in the initial few chapters when she's closer to Japan, the style and the use of haikus, the use of seasons, it just made the writing flow very beautifully. So it immediately had a very strong impact on me, and it resonated with me throughout the process. Coming to why it was a torturous experience. One, if you go through the Hindi, you'd see that it's pretty, the font is compact, paragraphs aren't broken up. You do need to sort of break the text itself. And but more than that, I found that the chronology completely broke pretty much when she went into war. So February 1945, when she left Tokyo and she heads to Kobe and onwards.
In fact, she contracts malaria, and we see a little gap in the book, in the diary as well. So I'm sure instances like that, real time, especially when you're in a trench and bombings are all around you, even recalling those moments, they can maybe be blurry in your mind or your memory.
Right. So it was very interesting for me to then fact check what she was saying. So for instance, if she's mentioned that, okay, Netaji visited us in Tokyo at this time, then finding different sources and being able to check that, Netaji was there at that time. And then it allowed me to put those sections of the diary into months rather than dates, if any place I found that the chronology was breaking. And I got completely swept away by these incredible stories. Like, each person who's taken part in the INA and the Azad Hind government, they've got such a strong, powerful story. And I think one of the best parts for me after publication is that people are coming up to me and saying that, hey, my father's friend, he was in the INA. Do you know anything about him? And I'm picking up nuggets. I'm like, yeah, he went on a submarine. He was an agent sent into India in 1943. And the story's coming to life.
It serves as a conduit to all these other stories as well. But I must say, this is quite a feat. Everything you've described, it's a very important part of history. It's a very subjective part of history, but nonetheless important. So thank you for all the hard work that you've put into bringing out Ma'am's story. Now, if I may address Asha ji right now directly, Ma'am, I wanted to ask you, what was your most militarily challenging experience while serving in the Rani Jhansi regiment?
Yeah, what is that?
This question.
What is the most challenging? We reached Rangoon, but war was over by that time. But before that, we just were marching and marching, and we were very happy that we are going towards India. So, and what?
So that experience coming back home, or rather having finished with the war, that was the most...
The American soldiers and even British Army, Indian soldiers came. So we just laughed them away. What can you do? We will be free in no time. You can do nothing like that. And all our what they did, American soldiers, they did. Only our belonging, they were very happy to see sarees and our uniform, and we had one or two sarees which are they behaved like a thief, and they took away everything with Indian type for themselves, not for us.
They also took away her pistol. And of course, when they came into the camp, they took away the rifles, all of them. And then later on, when she was, after the Rani Jhansi regiment was disbanded, and she was staying with the, after Netaji had gone, and she was staying with the president of the India Independence League, one Mr. Raghunath Sharma.
Yes.
And then the American soldiers came, and they were going and they were looking for people, and of course they ransacked her staff. They found a pistol that her father had given her, which of course they took. So, okay, I suppose those things happened after war. But of course, so that was for, she talks about it lightly, but for I think anyone else, it would have been a frightening experience.
Yes. In fact, in the book, there's she recalls one American soldier sort of telling her to do something, gives her an instruction, and she sort of rebuffs him and says, I'm just going to walk into the next room. I'm not going to listen to you. And it was probably a very risky thing to do, but she did it nonetheless. Because she even describes them as the American demons. So the second thing I wanted to ask is also in the end of the book, Asha ji's father has written a note on Sahay, and I'm just going to read out this note. It says, "Today we hear the voices of separatism within the country," and he also spoke about how Subhash Chandra Bose's message of unity is necessary now more than ever. So, ma'am, I wanted to ask you, do you agree that there's a lot of separatism, there's a lot of cracks in our civil society today that perhaps need to be mended? Would you agree with that? And what do you think how do you think Subhash Chandra Bose's message is important in that context?
I think I will field that question because it is, while I'm sure she has an answer for that, but since I've heard her enough times on this,
Mm-hmm.
You see, his
Yeah.
just a moment. Yes. So when these people came back to India, and the shock that they got after a while when talk of partition came about,
Mm-hmm.
and this is something that was unimaginable for them because they had fought shoulder to shoulder. If you see Subhash Bose's close coterie of generals and the Azad Hind government, there were equal number of Muslims and everyone was represented. So the thought that the country would be torn asunder was, in fact, on the day of independence, there was this huge a rally and a function, a very huge one in Patna. And these two people, my Anand Mohan Sahay and his wife, did not go. They were so sad that day. This is what is this independence? This is, they have torn the country apart. And of course, before
what
that,
is that separatism you see today? Are there examples of that? Are we talking about, cracks in civil society with regard to religion, caste? What is the burning issues that you see today that require Bose's message?
there was no burning issues in terms of religion at that time.
Yes. Well,
yeah, there were no burning
partition there was, but
what was the thing was that the country had been torn apart and India was not undivided, which was Subhash Bose's dream of a free, undivided India, which he said every time. So this was the shocking part. There was nothing, and Subhash Bose's his whole idea of Indian society and Hindustan, he used to say. He used to speak in Hindustani, which was also mixed with Urdu. I think there was only once in the book she says that when he spoke to her in Bengali.
Yes.
Just once. Okay. So he never spoke in Bengali. So he was very, very clear that he needed he wanted a country which was secular, which was just, justice for everyone, social, economic justice. So it is there in the Proclamation of Independence, that what he had, the idea of India that he had. So, and religion played no part in it. Religion was a private thing. He himself was, he was religious and he would do his prayers, but never. In fact, I can tell you an incident where in Malaysia, there was a Hindu priest who invited him to come to his temple and do puja. He says, of course I'll come, but I'll come with my people. And he landed up with Abid Hassan and with John Thivi, a Christian and a Muslim. And he said, they have to come with me. So the priests were very, very, didn't know what to do. But since he had come, so they went in. These people the tikas were put inside the temple. And the moment he came out, he wiped off the tika of all these other two people. And he said, okay, that is separate. But here we are nothing. We are only Indians and Hindustani. So that is why there was no, religion.
So that's why you're saying that today it's not that same sort of sentiment is there. India's more divided than it was back then.
It's a question.
I just want to add one more thing. So Dadi's sister, so Asha's sister, she was named by a very close friend of Anand Mohan Sahay's, Mustafa Futeh Ali, and she was named Rizia. And so she had a Muslim name, and Anand Mohan Sahay and his wife named their daughter Jaya. So it was very, very close bonds between Hindus and Muslims at that time. And I think that was their prayer, that it continues despite the partition, despite whatever happened, that unity remains. And it is a bit unfortunate to see the state of affairs in India at the moment.
That is why I feel that had Subhash Bose come back, our India would have been very different. Okay.
That actually brings me to my next question, which is which maybe Tanvi and Sanjay sir, you can also weigh in on this, but it's about the criticisms against Bose. You know, many people say that he was too blinded or too quick to partner up with Hitler and Mussolini, unlike Nehru, who saw the fascism of Hitler and Mussolini as a greater threat than British imperialism. And I know that Ashaji's family, as it was her father and mother, very much linked to the formation of the INA and Bose's ideals, very close friends of Bose. But how would you respond to these criticisms of Bose?
I will start with the fact that both of them were ardent congressmen before they got into this whole thing of going to Japan. Okay, they had ardent then met Subhash Bose was also very much a congressperson and admired Gandhiji to no end. And he's the one who called him the father of the nation. Okay. So, but when they saw that there was no way in which the British would give them independence, because at every stage they were being blocked. They were promised independence after the First World War. What they got was the Rowlatt Act and the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. And with all this, the more and more the realization was that now the only way out is to use force. Gandhiji was, of course, his whole way of looking at it was different, because he believed that it is non-violence will get it. But Gandhiji also said at that time that, look, if you close a cat in a room with no way to get out, it will scratch, which is exactly what had happened. So, and let me also tell you that Netaji was he was also influenced, whether it was Marx and nationalism, socialism. He was equally liked by the Russians. So he was in no way, I mean, he wouldn't, but he saw that what the British were doing to India, the Germans and Hitler were doing nothing to India. But what the British were doing to India, where millions were being killed, millions had gone were killed in the First World War, millions were killed in the famines and the penury that Indian people got into because of their policies, whether it was indigo or whatever. So he was. So he was very clear that, look, if we have to get rid of the British, we have to use. And then I'll quote you what a Japanese general told my grandfather. He said, look, when he went to Saigon, and Netaji had sent him to Saigon to arrange for, because he had good contacts there, to arrange for a place where all of them could stay after they left after the defeat. All the other generals landed up, and the Chinese general then, when they captured North Vietnam, they went and so Mohan Sahib went and told him, look, I mean, we are outside, maybe you want to arrest us. He said, no, but have you fought against the Chinese? He said, no, we've always fought against the English.
An enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Then he says, yeah, enemy's enemy is my friend. So that was the moment Hitler indicated that he was not going to help in freeing India from the British. Within months he left. The first opportunity, of course, the option to come to Japan was already conveyed by her mother, by Sati Sahay, before he had left India, and that things were ready. And these people, whether it was Rajbihari Bose, Anand Mohan Sahai, they had already spoken to the Japanese government, and with the Hikari Kikan, this relationship was already pakka. To the moment he got to realize that there was no help coming from here, he left. And he left and came to. So he was not.
Your argument is that Bose's ideals is a product of him being backed into a corner.
I'm sorry.
And so basically what you're trying to convey is that Bose's ideals was a product of him being pushed into a corner.
Yeah.
There was no other way out.
Okay.
So
I just wanted to ask one last question before we end, because we are running out of time. And once again, I would like to address Asha ji in particular. Ma'am, in one part of the book, you speak about kamikaze pilots, basically suicide bombers.
Huh? What she said?
Kamikaze pilots.
Okay.
Papa, if you can just shout it in her ear once, then she'll be able to just...
Answer this one.
Yeah.
She's asking this one. Kamikaze pilot के बारे में पूछ रहे हैं.
Jhansi के बारे में?
Pilots. Kamikaze.
So for our viewers who don't know, kamikaze pilots manned aircraft where they would basically be destroyed in the attack. So essentially suicide bombers. So what in the book, in fact, when Ma'am Asha ji interacts with some of these kamikaze pilots, she describes them as very young boys, who are ready to die the next day. So Asha ji, my question to you is, obviously at that time, kamikaze pilots were used as an act of war in World War II. But what do you think about suicide bombers and the use of kamikaze pilots in an act of war, let's say today? Do you condone such acts of war? And what do you think about them?
बोलिए.
Kamikaze? These kamikaze boys who were about 19, 20, 21 like that, were to go and die, dropping, jumping in the enemy plane or enemy ship, so that ship will be broken, ship will be destroyed, plane will be destroyed. But these young boys also will die, but it doesn't matter because enemy plane and ships are destroyed. So one person from Japan and thousands of Americans are going to die. So this was the way the kamikaze was prepared.
How do you feel about that, though? Because you also met many of these pilots who you said were 19 and 21. So what was it like watching them go ready to die?
Yeah, बोलिए.
हाँ?
बोलिए क्या बोल रहे हैं?
क्या? What she said? What she said?
Yeah. Do you condone this kind of thing? Yeah. ये अच्छा है कि नहीं अच्छा है?
हाँ.
So
there, we were in the same Japanese hotel with that Tokotai. Tokotai means special code. They were going to die in the 4 o'clock in the morning, and they were laughing like going to have a game. So I was feeling bad that these young boys are going to die. He said, "Oh, tomorrow we shall meet my mother, our mother. We are going to meet our mother," like that. They were so cheerful that that had nothing to do with that.
But today, was it a good thing? Today it should not happen. Today it should happen.
क्या? ठीक से बोलो.
आज के दिन में, is it is it a good thing for today? Today
what?
Today, suicide bomber. Is it good or bad?
I think today there is no need to do suicide because we don't have any enemy, or if there is any, they won't go for suicide unnecessarily. That was time when we needed to be so. But now, why should we die? Why should we die without any cause? So, if there is enemy coming to us, attack us, it's okay. Come, we shall fight, but we won't go for suicide. Yeah.
I have a view on that. I have a view that it is not that such suicide missions were not taken up in other countries and in other wars. They have always been there. Whether it was the First World War or even 18, 19-year-olds being made cannon fodder was commonplace in the First World War. Or, you see that whether you look at the Crimean War or First World War or even the Second World War or later on in Vietnam. So it's not something which was not heard of. That it is bad, I think everyone agrees that it was bad. It should not be.
It was unnecessary, and times have changed. The tech has advanced, the military equipment has advanced, so there's no need for that. But and in those days, the kind of wars that were fought were grueling. They were trench wars.
Trench wars.
It was a completely different situation. But nonetheless, we're still seeing it in the 21st century. Whether it's in the Middle East or in other disputed areas and conflicts. But apart from this, I have to say that reading this book and reading about even the training that Asha ji went through, and also serving deep in the jungles of Burma, waiting for the enemy to strike at any time, are very vivid experiences. And you can tell because they've been written as a diary keeper would write them, with no inhibitions. So I have to say thank you, Asha ji, for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We shall sometimes and
yes, in Delhi.
I'll be giving her a...
Yes, definitely. We would love to meet you. It was an honor to have you today on our Softcover platform. Tanvi and Sanjay sir, thank you so much for joining us as well. Is there anything else you guys would like to add? Any small tidbit for our viewers?
Thank you so much, Pia. Sanjay, I think you should add a bit about when...
Nice. I'm sorry with these physical disabilities of Asha ji, as you call her. Okay.
Not to worry, ma'am is 94 years old, but she still looks so sprightly. And even when she's talking about Kamikaze pilots, the memories were still sharp.
The older memories are very sharp, actually. Yeah, they are, because they were probably felt, they were far more stronger experiences than what you come across nowadays. So, yes, that was there.
Right.
No.
Now we don't want any war. We don't want any war. So no question of suicide for something. Why should we die for nothing? Our country is prospering, and that is enough. Why should we fight with other countries?
Now we use drones, if need be. Yeah. Thank you so much, Asha ji, Sanjay sir, and Tanvi. To our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in today. And I'm Pia Krishnankuti for The Print.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
you.